to another episode of Entrepreneurs in Fuego. We're documenting the journey of incredible entrepreneurs, one digital footprint at a time. Kevin Weber.
How you doing, Francisco?
How you doing, man?
Good.
BioMark Partners.
Yes.
What does BioMark do?
BioMark Partners is a consulting firm that helps small to medium-sized companies commercialize their life science or bioscience products.
You're a marketing company for these?
Marketing consulting, more or less marketing strategy,
Okay.
Primarily, as opposed to tactical marketing. So, what's your product, unique selling proposition, how is it packaged, how are you going to distribute it, how are you going to price it, those kinds of things are what we deal with primarily.
What is the toughest aspect of your job right now?
I think the toughest aspect really is getting small companies, especially small companies, to understand that marketing is not just promotion. It's not just social media. It's not just magazine advertising or mail programs. It's understanding who your customer is up front, what they need, and how they like to be communicated with. That's really the biggest challenge that I face a lot of times.
Because people will think that, well, I've got this great product over here, it's
Right.
going to sell itself.
Right.
Not quite. You need to promote it. You need to have somebody like yourself come in and say, let's figure out what your selling point is and how we can get that message out to the right customer.
Exactly, and that right customer is a key aspect of it as well, because a lot of people don't realize that the world isn't their customer. There's a segment of customers.
Correct.
There's a segment of the world that's their customer.
But particularly in the industries in which you
Yes.
work in.
Yes.
I mean, they're more segmentized, aren't they?
They really are, and it's key to understand those segments and understand them intimately, because marketing can be a very expensive proposition.
Sure.
And if you're not targeting your message to the right people, you can burn through a lot of cash very quickly.
Do you see yourself as a advertising marketing company, or do you see yourself a little bit differently than that? How do you define yourself?
It's really that strategic marketing, and that's a term that maybe needs to be better defined. But strategy is all about, what's your vision and what direction are you going in with this product. Once you decide on that and set your financial objectives and your metrics, the tactics, which are more advertising oriented,
Right.
they come out of that.
Okay.
So that's really kind of how I see us, is really helping do the front end work, and then the tactical marketing, advertising follows that.
You've been at this for a long period of time?
Over 30 years, marketing pharmaceutical products, medical devices, biologics, and selling and marketing to healthcare providers of all different types.
What is the biggest change that you have seen? I mean, you've been 30 years. If we go back 30 years ago,
Yeah.
fax machines were just barely coming on
Yeah,
board. Everybody, by the way, just doctors had pagers.
Right, exactly. Right.
Most kids right now wouldn't know what is a pager. But,
Yeah.
so, what is the change that you've seen more drastically in your industry?
I think it's a bit disturbing, but I think the biggest change has been that the physician is not the key decision maker anymore, many times, unfortunately.
Wow.
Your healthcare provider, and this is something that I think a lot of people are really disturbed by, many times it is a financial decision about which product to choose or to prescribe or to recommend to a patient, and physicians don't make decisions a lot of times based on the financial aspect of it. They want to prescribe or recommend to you the best therapy that's suited to you. So.
Sure.
And the best outcome that they're looking for. Your health is what they're most concerned about. But the healthcare delivery environment has changed to the point where financial decision makers are the ones that are really pivotal in making those decisions today.
The doctor on this side is saying, I want to be able to prescribe this particular product for the client because it's the best for the client. However, somebody here in accounting or in the financial department is saying, no, we're not going to allow that.
Correct.
And we're going to allow maybe a different type of product that might be more economically feasible for the company.
And a lot of times it's not a black and white situation like that where they say you can do this but you can't do that, but they put they put barriers and incentives in place to guide that decision making
Got it.
and penalties in place so that, a lot of times they're creating so many hurdles to a physician to prescribe or to treat that patient how they think they should be treated, and they're guiding them down a different path that is maybe more financially lucrative for the payer or for the entity that is really providing the care.
I can see where the challenge from a marketing point of view, it's incredibly big for you.
It is because when I got into the industry, you needed to show that your product was safe and efficacious.
Sure.
And that you had distribution, it was readily available, you didn't have hurdles of access and those kinds of things. Now it's really become the ability for you to demonstrate the financial viability of your product to insurers and other payers. That tends to be one of the key drivers. And that's not all bad either, because there were a lot of products out there that did not necessarily deserve to be used. And I think a lot of times it came down to the relationship that you had with the physician or the nurse or whatever.
Sure.
And that shouldn't be the key driver either. Just because you've got a great relationship with a physician, that shouldn't be why they prescribe your product either. So I think there's a good balance, that's a better balance that could be there, but to me the pendulum has swung way too far to the one side where it's financial decision making as opposed to clinical outcome decision making.
So lately also we've seen many reports where the supply and demand of a particular product determines the unilateral or the elasticity of the price, if you will, because if you have something that nobody else has and you're the only provider, I can increase the price by 1,000%.
Yeah.
With a lot of public relation repercussions, and you'll be sitting in Congress testifying, a week later. I mean, why did you do this?
Absolutely.
And so that's going to be an incredible challenge as well.
Well, to me, it's not a challenge because, in a free market system, which we all want, you should be able to adjust the price, based on certain market conditions. But I've never, ever been a proponent of, or never, would support someone taking the kinds of price increases that we've seen some of these people do. I mean, that to me is just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Right.
And their moral compass to me is I'm sounding judgmental now, but their moral compass to me is way off the charts.
But to somebody that depends upon that particular product, my goodness, it is a huge increase.
It can be devastating.
It can be devastating, correct.
And that's
because your life depends on it. I mean, literally.
Absolutely. No, I agree, and I think it's one of those things that we as a society and as an industry need to get our heads around and get our arms around. I think if you talk to 99% of the leadership in the pharmaceutical, medical device, and biotech industry, they would tell you that is not acceptable behavior. There's a couple of bad apples out there, and those are the ones that we're seeing, and I'm not going to mention any names.
Right,
but
and we would want to see that they're, we can call it outliers, and it's just terrible. Do you, without really getting too political, but do you really see that at some point we will have some type of healthcare system that will be fair, equitable, and everybody can coexist? Because nobody's going to be happy.
Yeah.
Completely.
Right.
But we can coexist, and that is going to be fair for everybody. Do you think that could be possible?
That's a really big question, and I'm not sure that I can answer it, to be honest with you, because I think fair to you might be different than what fair is to me.
Sure.
And so I think we've got a lot of different constituencies who want different things. The one thing that I would say is that I think it can be more equitable and has to become more equitable, and I believe it will. Doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. I think the equitableness of the system has to change and has to become in a better balance. That's my opinion. But what I would say is, I'm still a capitalist and I'm still an entrepreneur.
Sure, of course.
And I feel like if we don't put adequate financial incentives out there for entrepreneurs to innovate and to take risk, then we are going to see a decline in the amount of innovation and the decline in the amount of new business and new opportunities, new things, new therapies happening. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. You know, they want to see the innovation. We put out the most innovation of any country in the world, scientifically, medically, but it costs money, and we pay for that as Americans. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Karen Weber.
So,
I have
Francisco.
one last thing.
Sure.
For you. In all these 30 years, what is the one lesson that you remember of all this experience? If you could take all your experience, what is the one thing that you said, yeah, this is what I've gotten 30 years, and this is what I would pass on to my son or my daughter as my lesson from all this experience that I've gotten in my entrepreneurship
I think it's about balance. If one of the things, if there's only one thing I've learned, it's you can be passionate about your idea and your whatever your passion is, but you have to balance that with a plan, and you have to be organized, and you have to be able to execute, because a lot of people can talk a good game, but not many people can execute a good game. And I think it's finding the right balance between those two. To me, that's the secret to success.
Ideas dime a dozen. It comes to mind.
That's a good way to put it. Great to see you.
Great to see you. With that, we're out.